And I'm really, really delighted to have with us today Alex and Harvey from Valyu. And we're going to talk a little bit about their roles, their company, and actually their journey in terms of being machine learning, AI specialists and entrepreneurs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, we're really delighted to have you here. So thank you very much. And maybe, Alex, we can just kick off with you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the business.
Hello. Okay, good. Hi, thank you very much. So yeah, my name is Alex, and I'm the head of AI research at Valyu. So my background, I did my master's degree at UCL, very research heavy, a lot to do with deep learning and deep learning infrastructure. And I was also part of UCL's information theory research group.
So my name's Harvey. I also came out of UCL, so I'm one of the co-founders and CTO of Valyu. So my role in the company is more just general engineering infrastructure. So I sort of deal with all the tech side. Yeah, I have a background in so more on the privacy side, but also a lot in deep learning, machine learning from UCL as well. So that's where me and Alex met. We actually met at a hackathon. So I think some of us
yeah. Do you know the serendipity at these places? I can already see it actually across some of the teams. Thank you very much. So on your website it says find, curate and license ML data sets. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your company?
So yeah, you may see in the news nowadays there's a lot of issues around copyright and fair use when it comes to training data for a lot of these large language models. And what our company aims to solve is working with these content platforms where the data may be being scraped right now by AI companies, and work with AI companies to license their data out, essentially. Yeah.
So when you talk about data provenance, just talk a little bit more detail about that.
Yeah, so data provenance, the term provenance basically is being able to track where your data is coming from. So one thing that just generally within AI companies, what they see is provenance is actually a key indicator of data's quality, and being able to track where your data is coming from is just a good indicator of, how well your model will perform based on the data. I think Harvey can probably talk a little bit more about provenance.
Yeah, I'd say it's very important to know exactly what data has gone into your models. Again, what Alex was saying about quality, you need to know exactly what's going into your models. It's sort of like a garbage in, garbage out kind of situation. So being able to trace this directly instead of scraping all of your data and not knowing exactly the sources that it's come from, whether it's high quality data. So it's very important. Also, we're seeing a lot of regulation now. So the EU AI Act asking AI companies to disclose exactly where they've got, what copyright data they have in their training data sets.
So just thinking a little bit more around data, how do you know the difference between good quality data? Because data that's good for one purpose might be poor data for another. So
yeah, I mean, when it comes to training data, I think there are just some key features within the data which are universally indicators of good quality. Like, let's take images, for example, having high quality images with decently high resolution, make sure there's no noise or artifacts present in them. That's just general signs of good quality data. But also, I would say it's very task dependent. So as Harvey said just now, I mean, the common rule in machine learning is garbage in, garbage out. And when it comes to putting models in production, it's very relevant to have data training data, which is actually representative of what your model itself will be seeing in production, essentially. Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys are up to date with the latest deep learning news, Llama 3.1 just came out. And I think the most interesting point they highlighted in that paper was the general increase in performance seen in Llama 3.1 was actually because of them refining, not just increasing the size of the data set, but refining the data processing methods such that they were able to judge and perform ablation experiments on their data to ensure that the data was of high quality. And they actually did a lot of, experimentation with scaling laws. And I think this is probably a pretty long topic if I go too deep into it, so I'll probably stop there.
Well, all I'll say is I'm ex-Meta, so I'm always happy when Llama model comes out. It's great for the stock price. Okay. I just want to talk maybe you talked a little bit around where data comes from, and I guess we could talk about kind of origin data, but I'm quite interested in your thoughts around synthetic data. Do you have any thoughts around that? Sorry, we didn't brief on that earlier, but it kind of
yeah.
came to mind as you spoke.
So I think we're going to see a lot more synthetic data going forward in machine learning. I mean, if you just look at the paper that I was talking about just now, they do use a lot of synthetic data in their post-training process. So when we say post-training, that means more of, I guess, user experience side of the model on how it responds to questions, less on the reasoning side. And not just that, but also coding and multilingual capabilities within the model as well. I think when it comes to synthetic data, do you want my honest opinion? I do feel a lot of companies aren't doing it correctly. I think what the approach Meta did was actually really good, where they actually trained a model from the ground up based on some very highly curated data to basically create domain experts in each of these fine-tuning fields, and then using these experts generate synthetic data, which was then used to basically do the post-training of Llama 3.1.
Yeah, we're not seeing synthetic data really being used in the actual training data sets at the moment. It seems, pre-training, it seems to be a lot more post-training at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you. So probably some thoughts around the type of data sets that you might be using for your own data, whether that's your models thinking about learning on the fly, or whether you're kind of pre-training or thinking about synthetic data sets. So it can be quite interesting, I think. I'm quite interested in your kind of journeys, actually. So, and the lessons learned. So you've kind of come out of university, you're building a business, you're clearly, very highly skilled, kind of motivated machine learning engineers, but you're now entrepreneurs as well. Yeah. So kind of talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I guess so. We both met at a hackathon, so similar to this, just building out it was a tool for using LLMs to convert different code between different languages, so sort of like transpiling that. And we have another co-founder named Hirsch, and we'd all been doing sort of research in a very similar area. And we all have, so me and Hirsch have a joint, I guess, supervisor, you could say it, when we were back in uni, and he's very, very keen on like commercializing research. So we basically all got together and decided we'd take this seriously and build a product out of it. So we started at the beginning of this year, we put out a platform for looking at the provenance of the largest like open source data sets widely used in machine learning. And I guess we learned a lot from this. I think when it comes to building out a platform, I can't stress the importance enough of just testing. Make sure it's done. It will come back to haunt you if you don't.
I mean, I can probably attest to that. So, as the nature of a startup mainly is you have to be quick, you need to move fast, and be scrappy. And I think we took that too much to the extreme, where we kind of put aside a lot of our documentation, versioning, and testing, kind of bit us in the ass a few months down the road, and we had to spend quite a bit of time just consolidating everything. So that's a probably good lesson.
Yeah, I think move fast, but try not to break things.
No, because you'll definitely learn from breaking things, but try not to be in a position where your company dies because you broke something. There's a balance. Yeah, there's a balance.
Okay, your website's still up, you're good. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit more about that journey. So personally, for you guys, what's been the tough bit so far on this journey? Oh.
So I think from a more personal level of running a startup, the hardest part for me is kind of the belief in yourself. Like, as a founder, you have the conviction, you have, that your sixth sense of what you want to take, where you want to take the company in, the direction of your company in. And sometimes people would be like, or more like you have haters, and they would basically say, no, what you're doing is stupid. With some really good stories, but I probably won't discuss that on an open mic. But I mean, just believing your conviction and kind of staying true to your vision and your beliefs when running a startup, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'd say, I guess, more on the business side as well. When it comes to funding, it can be very difficult, especially in the UK. We were quite lucky, so we went for an accelerator program with A16Z. And they've treated us very well, and we got into that quite early. Yeah, so that was a hectic 10 weeks, probably the most productive 10 weeks for us. But I think before that, just looking at getting funding, we were very fortunate to have that opportunity. Yeah.
Well, we have some government people in the room, so actually they can take that message back, maybe, that actually around investment, funding and growth. So thank you very much, guys, for that. I just want to ask a question, just a little bit around sort of a steer for the audience in the room today around sort of product development. So rather than your company kind of lessons learned, just from a product development perspective, you talked about testing already, and you talked about, move fast, break things. But what else? What kind of guidance would you give for these guys?
Yeah, definitely. If you're deciding to launch a product, I think the number one most important thing to do is customer feedback. Like that's what defines you or will define your company. And basically, if your customers aren't happy with your product and they won't be using it, then you won't get any revenue. So always listen to your customers, get their feedback, iterate quickly upon their feedback, and the cycle continues.
Yeah, I'd say like having some very like early users that really love what you're doing is great. We're very lucky. Like some of our users, I'd say they request a feature. They send it like, okay, we'd like you to implement this, and then within the next few hours, that's all we're doing, and we'll push it back out to them in the next few hours. And it's great to have that like cycle of feedback and iterating over that. Because a lot of the time you might not realize that there's something obvious that your product should have, but you haven't actually spotted it. So having people that are constantly like testing your product and using it is great.
Amazing. So just love as we close out on this main section, and we're going to go to questions. If you want to start thinking about some of the questions you might want to ask, I guess one final thought from each of you for the audience that we have here today would be great, and then we'll open the floor up. You want to give us a final thought?
Good
Engineers, Rob.
Good luck. Yeah, you're gonna crush it. You just gotta crush the other teams in your category, and you'll win the hackathon.
Do your tests, get feedback. Yeah.
Ask us for feedback if you want.
Amazing. Thank you. Oh, Hannah, yeah.
I've got a question. Yeah. With all the behavioural scientists in the room that talk about synthetic data, and this is a question that you may not know the answer to, is how do you create fake people, fake synthetic data that actually acts like real people act? Because I think that's very interesting for the behavioural scientists in the room, if they could create synthetic data that actually represented what people do. You need to collect.
I would say a good place to start is just getting some very general base data. When it comes to neurodivergent people, I do think that our current models may struggle because, every model is inherently biased to the people who trained it. And I would say some models will probably do it better, I guess, in this category. It's hard to say. I probably haven't actually looked into how well represented neurodivergence is in the current model ecosystem. So it's probably hard to see how well it performed. But yeah.
That's really interesting to me. So we could create a model that just represented one subtype.
Yeah, essentially. Because if you look at, for example, the Claude family of models, they are very representative of the company's vision or Anthropic's vision of having, I guess, a very safe model. Essentially, yeah.
For your business, but also where the market's going.
I'd say, yeah, we definitely are in somewhat of an AI bubble at the moment. I think a lot of these companies may not be around in the next 5 years or so. I think we're seeing a lot of GPT wrappers, they call them, and I think we're seeing a lot of money being put into these AI companies, and I don't know if there's going to be a lot of big returns, you could say, from that. But I think there will be a lot of good that does come out of this. It's the same with the dot-com bubble. Crypto to some extent has had the same sort of ups and downs, and I think it will be the same for AI. It hasn't been actually that long since we saw ChatGPT come out, which was sort of like the beginning of it. So I think there will definitely be a lot of ups and downs. I think for us, we're betting on the importance of high quality data for these models, which we're seeing validated pretty significantly and regularly, especially with the Llama paper the other day. Yes, I think.
Yeah, I guess on the model side of stuff, I do think we are still going to see good increases in performance over the next few years. Whether we actually get AGI, as OpenAI is saying, not very sold on that idea, unless we do see a major leap in technology as we did with the transform architecture. I'll definitely say the best part was the accelerator we did with A16Z. We learned a lot of things. We met amazing founders and other co-founders within our batch, but also founders from other companies who came and gave talks to us, kind of what we're doing now. On the bad side,
uncertainty around funding before we got the opportunity to go through the accelerator was I think it can be quite a grueling process, like getting a list of 200 VCs that you've got to go through each one of them. And we were quite fortunate that we got into this accelerator quite early. So I think that was probably the hardest, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so before, just to give some context, before this, we actually bootstrapped for about 12 months before we actually got into accelerators. So yeah, it was a hectic time back then. It's still a hectic time now, but just a different type of hectic, I guess.
Yeah, that bootstrap period's really hard, right? Yeah, you're kind of sweating. Yeah.
I guess when it comes to starting a company, my best advice is start a company in a sector that you are passionate in. So why we started Valyu is because as machine learning scientists, I mean, part of at least my research was 60% of the time of me doing my research was just finding the right data, and it was just a personal problem I had. And I mean, looking at other founders which I'm friends with, a lot of them have started their company upon conviction, basically based on problems that they experienced personally. So the question is, do you think open source AGI is going to be a problem? So I guess I'll answer this from, I guess, my personal view on this, where I'm very in line with the open source community. I feel that open source is the way to go when it comes to a lot of these things. And I feel personally, if there is a bad actor which wants to use AGI for like a bad, I guess, sense, or there will always be someone on the other side which does the right thing. Yeah. So yes, this is another very controversial question. So the question is Meta really open source because they don't release the underlying training data for Llama, essentially? I would say it's not truly open source. If you look at the definition of open source, I wouldn't say it is truly open source. However, I would say they are probably doing the best they probably can. I mean, even in the paper, it said that basically the performance of the model is attributed to the data set. And I can understand why they do want to release the data set, but I mean, I guess, yeah, in the nature of open source, it is not truly open source.
Can we concede on open architecture? Concede to open architecture. Should we do that? Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. And guys, are we correct in saying you're going to stick around for a little bit? Okay.